Welcome to day one of your 5-day free knee series. I'm so excited that you're joining me because it's so important to be informed about what's happening within the body rather than just looking at an image or feeling pain and being so uncertain of what to do. Hopefully through this series, you get to know your body a little bit more, see why you might be feeling and experiencing this pain, and have the power and the tools to feel like you can do something about it. I know it's just 5 days, it's just getting started, but this is an introduction into education to get to know your knee. So in day one, we really just want to come back into assessment of what's happening within the body. What I usually say about the knee or the elbow, it's that it's the joint that kind of takes the brunt of pressure when things aren't moving well above or below. So if we haven't taken into account what's happening at the hip, that can put a lot of unnecessary strain and pressure that's happening at the knee. Yes, the knee can load. That's what it's made for. It's made to be able to hold you up, and it's strong. But we just want to make sure that it's working well with the hip, with the ankle, and with the foot. So we're gonna run through some short assessments because I always say it's so much better to assess what's happening in your body rather than just guessing. And a lot of people will go through my feed on Instagram or YouTube and just start to pick and choose because that's what they see that they think they need. But what I want you to do within this free series is start to get to know your body a little bit deeper. So we're gonna start with this assessment, and I'm gonna give you 2 assessments for range of motion and 2 assessments for strength, because yes, we want our mobility, our range of motion to be working well, but we also have to see where we're lacking in strength. And know that these are 2 examples of each of them, but there's so much more that we can always assess within the body. I'm just gonna give you an introduction of what it can look like and feel like so that you start to this journey of getting to know your body, okay? So this first one, I'm gonna use a box. You can use a wall, you can use something that's straight and that you can kind of measure with a little bit easier. So what I'm gonna do is I wanna place my foot, and you don't have to wear shoes. These are super flat, so it's essentially like not wearing any shoes. We really don't want any shoe with any cushion because then that's just gonna cheat what's happening. So go barefoot if you can. So kick off their shoes and socks so you get a really good idea. You're gonna move this foot about 4 to 5 inches away from the wall, okay? And then what you're gonna do is then guide your knee forward and see, can it touch the wall or the thing in front of you without your heel popping up and without your hip really coming out to the side, okay? If it's hard for you even to get into this kneeling position, you can come up a little bit higher and then try the movement from there, okay? What this is testing as well is our ankle range of motion. When we squat, when we move, we need our ankles to move in order for the pressure not to go all onto the knee. I know that a lot of us have been conditioned to believe that our knee can never pass our toe, but that's not functional and that's not reality. And as we've learned through science, and as you know, science continues to change, we know that it is not bad to allow that knee to pass the toe. And it's actually a very functional test to see if we even have that range of motion. If you feel a little bit more restriction in the front of your ankle, it could mean that there is just a little bit more joint mobility that's lacking here. If you feel it more in the back of that ankle, so more like at the Achilles or the calf, you might have just some tightness through those tissues. So again, just a good way to start to assess and see what's happening. That's what we're doing today, okay? Next, I wanna check my hips. And a lot of people, you know, it's my hip flexors that are super tight. Well, how are our hips rotating? They need to rotate an internal and external rotation, especially when we squat, when we move, when we hinge. There are some different motions that happen in that hip joint. So it's way more than just flexion and extension. Yes, those are ones that are very important to measure, and I do recommend measuring them. But today we're just gonna focus on that hip internal and external rotation. I'm gonna show you a trick that's really easy to do it. So coming here, into this 90-90. You might have seen it on my Instagram page or along the internet somewhere. What you wanna make sure is that your foot's not bent in. We literally wanna be in 90 degrees. So from my top leg to my shin, 90 degrees here, 90 degrees between my legs, and 90 degrees in my back leg. And I'm not gonna stretch or anything, I'm just gonna come into it. Now, if I lean forward and my knee is still popping off of the floor, I might have a little bit more restriction in hip external rotation. If when I turn and face the front, my bottom is really cannot even get close to coming down. It doesn't have to be flush on the floor, but if it really feels like, ooh, that's painful and I need to lean away, you might have some restriction around hip internal rotation. So do both sides, see what it's like. Again, knee popping off, a little bit more restriction in external rotation. Can't sit quite down on the floor. Rotation, restriction, and internal rotation. Okay, and these are important because we need internal rotation in that hip, that back leg that I showed you, in order to get into full flexion in the bottom of the squat. We also need those knees to open and rotate as we squat in order for we don't have, because what happens a lot in squat, if my knees can't go out in external rotation, right? I put a lot of just tension and torque into that knee joint over and over and over again. That could lead to some pain. I'm not saying it is the reason, I'm saying it could. So we also want external rotation. So you can see how if you're lacking one of those, it could be a result of what's happening at the knee. And now we're gonna go into some quick tests just to see how that strength is happening around the knee. We're specifically going to test the quad strength and the glute strength. I'm gonna use a band. This band is from Hope Fitness. You can use code DocJen to get a little, I think it's DocJen, I'll confirm that. I believe it's DocJen, you get 20% off of these bands, so pretty good deal. So I'm using a pretty tight band, it's about medium, because I really wanna test. And how we're gonna test this isn't as specific because you don't have a therapist there. I'm not there with you, putting my hands on you, but we're just gonna see what it's like in our body. So this first one, we're just gonna lie on the back and have the legs out straight. Now, if you don't have a band, that's okay. If you do, take one foot and plant it down to hold that band. Now this leg, the knee that we're testing, the leg that we're testing, we're gonna have it go straight. So flex that toe back, press that knee down to the floor so that it straightens out that leg as much as possible. And we're just gonna go ahead and lift. I wanna feel that tension on the band and without anything else happening within the trunk. So this completely stays still. I'm just gonna see, can I hold with this knee straight? If it starts to bend, then I'm starting to get a little bit of weakness, okay? So I wanna see with a completely locked out straight foot, that foot back toward my face, can I hold it, squeezing for 30 seconds? If you're like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm gonna go for a straight 30 seconds, it could be a good indicator. Maybe that quad needs a bit more work, okay? If you do not have a band, you are just going to hold it out. And again, we're looking for any breaks within the knee, we're looking for that toe coming down or compensation within the trunk area. Okay, so those are just some areas to start to assess, or you can even have a friend lightly, not crazy, start to press down onto that shin or on that foot and see if you can hold it. Okay, again, a great way to test is not just the 30-second mark, but doing each side. Especially if you have one knee that bothers you more than the other, test the side that isn't affected, the side that doesn't have the pain, and see what it feels like from the other side. Testing both sides is a great way to get feedback into the body and do your own assessment. So that way it doesn't have to go against norms or whatever. It's just within your own body, are there differences side to side? It's a great way to test. Okay, now I'm gonna move the band around my knees and do the classic clam. Now, for this one, I want to picture that I'm against a wall, okay? So my feet are going to line up with my pelvis, and my pelvis is going to be in line with my shoulders, okay? Now, from here, I want to make sure, and I talked this through in the optimal body a lot more detail, but we're just going to make sure we're in a straight line. We're not pressing and compressing into those feet, so I'm not pushing my feet together, they're just resting. And keeping this hip forward and stacked right on top of my other foot, I'm just gonna try to lift and hold. Now this, for what I'm looking for, is again a 30-second hold without pushing any tension into my feet, without letting my hip rock back, so keeping that hip forward, keeping this hip forward and not letting my knee start to fall. If my knee starts to fall, that means I'm getting weakness on this outer side of the glute. So this is really testing more of that glute med strength, but that is the stability within the hip. It really tells us what is happening around that hip that could possibly be leading into what's happening at the knee. So again, day one is just an assessment tool. It's just seeing what is happening. There's other muscles that we can test. We can always test glute max. We can always test hamstring. We can always test our calf muscle, even the front of the shin here. There are other things to continue to consider when it comes to knee pain, and it's important that we consider the entire picture, because it's never just what is happening at the joint or even the quad that attaches there, but it's all the muscles surrounding the knee that help to support and create this better stable joint. So test as much as you can, see the difference side to side, and start to mark it down. We'll start to work on it as the week goes on.